It is my privilege today to introduce our commencement speaker, the Most Reverend Bernard Hebda, Archbishop of St. Paul and Minneapolis. Born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Archbishop Hebda has degrees from Harvard and Columbia Universities, as well as the North American College and the Pontifical Gregorian University in Rome. A canon lawyer, he has served as Undersecretary of the Pontifical Council for Legislative Texts, which is responsible for the interpretation of the Catholic Church's laws. Pope Benedict XVI named him a bishop in 2009. In 2013, he was appointed coadjutor Archbishop of the Archdiocese of Newark, New Jersey. In June 2015, Pope Francis chose him as Apostolic Administrator of the Archdiocese of St. Paul and Minneapolis. And on March 24th of 2016, he was named Archbishop Designate. He was installed as our Archbishop on May 13th of last year. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Most Reverend Bernard Hebda, Archbishop of St. Paul and Minneapolis.
Thank you very much. President Sullivan, trustees of the University of St. Thomas, distinguished faculty, devoted staff, faithful alumni, and class of 2017. I am thrilled to be with you and honored by the privilege of offering this year's commencement address. My task, unfortunately, was rendered somewhat more difficult earlier this week by the Star Tribune. To combat graduation boredom, they put out bingo cards for graduates to play during commencement. Getting to Market Square if the commencement speaker quoted Maya Angelou, Dr. Seuss, Lady Gaga, or Ann Coulter. As well as if he or she advised graduates to dream big, or follow your passion, or don't be afraid to fail. You get the point. I'll do my best to make sure that no one is able to call out bingo during this address. When I arrived in the Twin Cities as diocesan administrator almost 2 years ago, I had the opportunity to meet with the priests of the Archdiocese all at once, who on that day had been gathered for the Presbyteral Assembly in Rochester. One of the priests boldly came to the microphone and encouraged me as the administrator to let Pope Francis know that there was a need for an archbishop here from Minnesota, citing a distinct culture in these parts. I had never spent any time in Minnesota, but I remember thinking that that priest had to be exaggerating just a bit. The United States is a big country, but how different could it be here? The following day, as I headed back to New Jersey, a woman came up to me as we were waiting to board the airplane, and asked if I was the new administrator. She proceeded to welcome me with a huge smile, which immediately made me suspicious. The New Jersey antenna went up. We didn't normally talk to strangers in airports. She must have sensed my East Coast defensiveness because she quickly added that her husband was a Tommy and all 3 of her kids were Tommies. She seemed harmless, but I couldn't figure out why she was admitting to me that she was so unimaginative that she had named all 3 of her sons after her husband. Maybe that priest in Rochester was right. Things are different here. In the almost 2 years that have passed since then, I've come to realize that Tommy is not only a generic reference to a graduate of this great institution, but a descriptor, a shorthand for referring to someone that a bishop should love and be proud of. I have come to know that in this community, a Tommy is someone who is well-educated, well-rounded, and imbued with a sense of service. Like the founder of this institution, my predecessor, Archbishop John Ireland, a Tommy is both urbane and hardworking. I love the statue of him here in your quad, wearing both the frock coat of a gentleman and the wrinkled pants and muddied shoes of someone who would not be afraid to get down into the muck of life, willing to grapple with the everyday complexities of whichever age in which we find ourselves, all for the common good. A brilliant churchman, Archbishop Ireland anticipated what would later be the teachings of the Second Vatican Council. He knew that the Church was called to have an impact on society, and he knew that Catholic education would be an important means to that end, not only enabling the faithful of an immigrant church to take their place in society, but preparing and challenging young minds to have a real impact as they sought to bring the intellectual skills that they honed at St. Thomas to bear on the challenges of modern society, always in the framework of the Catholic intellectual tradition that values the dignity of each human person, each human life, and emphasizes the importance of true freedom. Writing in the 2nd century, St. Irenaeus would observe that the glory of God is man fully alive. With that in mind, it should have been no surprise that universities would have arisen in the Catholic context. Assuming that Irenaeus' statement is true, a Catholic university vigorously dedicated to helping its students come alive cannot help but give glory to God, coming fully alive as great mathematicians, great scientists, great musicians, great historians, great philosophers. Pope Francis recognizes that that enormous potential still exists whenever a university, and this is his quote, responds to the right of every person to have access of knowledge and is dedicated to the full development of the person. He has emphasized that that's true even in the modern context, when, as he said, Catholic universities are attended by many students who are not Christian or who do not believe. To his way of thinking, today's multicultural universities are not unlike the Galilee of the people in which Christ preached, Galilee being a crossroads of people, diverse in terms of race, culture, and religion. For Pope Francis, it is crucial for the Catholic university, even in that setting, to present Jesus Christ as the meaning of life, the cosmos, and history. The profound changes that have led to the ever wider diffusion of multicultural societies requires those who work in the university sector to be involved in educational itineraries, he said, involving comparison and dialogue, with a courageous and innovative fidelity that enables Catholic identity to encounter the various souls of a multicultural society. Being open and modern and inclusive and multicultural doesn't mean that we leave God out of the equation or that we fail to present Christ, but rather that we present him in his centrality to the meaning of life, the cosmos, and history in a way that respects individual freedom, and with the confidence that the encounter with Christ, even when mediated through our imperfect and humble efforts, is one that can be transformative. I have been thrilled whenever I have been on campus and experienced the vibrancy with which today's Tommies embrace that encounter with the divine. Maybe it's because there are 2 excellent seminaries on campus, or a world-renowned Catholic studies program, or an active Catholic campus ministry program with deep respect for other religious traditions. Maybe it's because of the Murray Institute, or the Ryan Institute, or the Center for Muslim-Christian Dialogue. Maybe it's because of the many service projects that are pursued because of faith. Whatever the reason or reasons, we're blessed on this campus with ready expressions of belief and an openness to faith that provides a dynamism all their own. I don't think that I've ever stopped in the university's exquisite Masquerade Chapel and been alone. My experiences of Tommy Catholic nights, Cor Jesu First Fridays, and St. Charles Borromeo weekends all point to a student body that is unusually receptive to an encounter with a loving God. At the risk of setting off the Star Tribune's commencement bingo alarms, allow me to offer one piece of advice to the class of 2017 that goes beyond dreaming big or being afraid to fail, but probably touches upon following your passion. As you leave this campus, this place where matters of faith can be so easily studied, pursued, dissected, and discussed, remember to include God in your life equation. Bring God into your planning for the future. Trust that God has a unique plan for you and for this world, that the Creator of the universe is most willing to reveal to you. We find ourselves this morning on this campus of not just any Catholic university, but in a university under the heavenly patronage of the great saint and intellect Thomas Aquinas. I would like to suggest this morning that he would be an excellent role model for the newest class of Tommy alumni, regardless of religious affiliation or stage on the faith journey. By the time he was your age, he had already committed himself to pursuing the truth and to exploring the whys of this world with reason. He realized that he couldn't do that on his own, so he continued to seek out the best teachers he could find and to ask God to give direction to his life and his pursuits. We heard Father Larry lead us in his simple prayer. O merciful God, grant that I may desire ardently, search prudently, recognize truly, and bring to perfect completion whatever is pleasing to you, for the praise and glory of your name. That prayer led the prototypical Tommy 1.0, not only to the pinnacle of intellectual achievement, but also to a life of meaning. He excelled not only in speculative theology, but in a practical philosophy of life that led him to a deep understanding of human friendship, as Reed spoke about, and insights into life and love that continues to excite a young heart and mind. When we remember to invite our Creator into our lives, when we remember to ask for divine direction, when we seek to do what gives glory to God's name, what we do can have consequences in this world. Know of my prayers in the support of a whole community of Tommies as you set out this day on the journey of a lifetime. I'm grateful that Divine Providence has brought you to this Catholic university as a springboard for all that God has in mind for you. May that loving God bring to fulfillment the great work he has begun in you. Thank you.
Thank you, Archbishop. I know our graduates appreciate hearing your inspiring words.